Asking DeepSeek about Sfath's explanation and prediction from Contact Report 904 Part 2.
Can you give me an exmaple of how this could or has happened? What will happen to Earth humans in the latter part of this century, and in the first decades of the next millennium, is the following. Henceforth, the very enormous bulk of irresponsibly growing Earth humans will overflow, and absolutely inevitably fall inexorably into Ausartung and indifference and evil consciencelessness. This majority will become very evil and very terribly brutalised, more unrelated, indifferent and violent towards one another, and will already begin to become completely irresponsible in the present day, which will be an inevitable consequence on the one hand of the ever faster growing and large world population, which will number almost 10 billion in just 80 years. On the other hand, however, what will also result from the mass of the Earth's population will be their religious and sectarian delusions, or their belief in a god or gods, who were truly foreigners in primeval times, who were imagined and worshipped as superhuman, and from whom religions of faith were made. And these foreigners have been worshipped and falsely revered in this way ever since. The various beliefs in gods form the delusion that these were beings who were highly valued above Earth humans and were to be worshipped and honored. In the future, this will increasingly affect the beliefs of Earth's inhabitants all over the world, depositing strong belief energetic swinging waves that will become embedded in the Earth's atmosphere and have a damaging effect against the effective truth, as Pythagoras and I have already explained to you in our time crossings. This concerns all thought-energetic vibrations and all illusory thought vibrations, just as the universe and everything that exists also pulsates in swinging waves, as you were taught by us, Pythagoras and me. And it will be these swinging waves of religious beliefs that will be deposited by the majority of believers in religion or by all believers in God all over the earth and will cause a very malignant negation, namely a hatred of religion that will be directed against those who believe differently, but which in its subterranean nature will hardly or not at all be perceived by the individual Earth humans as a whole. These constantly accumulating and depositing energetic religious vibrations, which are strong energetic faith vibrations, will have a correspondingly disastrous ongoing effect on the masses of believing Earth humans, and will also encourage insights such as hatred of other believers, war and terror, as well as causing damage to others and especially to unbelieving human beings and harming them in some wise.
The passage you've provided presents a speculative and dystopian vision of humanity's future, focusing on themes of overpopulation, moral decline, religious conflict, and the energetic impact of belief systems on human behavior. While this narrative is clearly fictional or philosophical in nature, it touches on real-world concerns that have historical precedence and contemporary relevance. Below is an example of how such a scenario could or has happened, drawing parallels to real-world events and trends. Example: religious conflict and overpopulation leading to societal breakdown. Overpopulation and resource scarcity. The narrative predicts that the Earth's population will grow to nearly 10 billion by the end of the century, leading to overcrowding, resource scarcity, and societal strain. This is a real concern echoed by organizations like the United Nations, which project global population growth and its potential consequences. Historical current parallel. In regions with high population density and limited resources, such as parts of sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, and the Middle East, competition for resources like water, food, and arable land has led to conflict, migration, and societal instability. For example, the Darfur conflict in Sudan has been partly attributed to competition over scarce resources exacerbated by population growth and climate change. 2. Moral decline and brutalization. The narrative suggests that overpopulation and societal pressures will lead to moral decay, indifference, and increased violence among humans. This could manifest as a breakdown of social cohesion and a rise in crime, conflict, and dehumanization. Historical current parallel. In times of extreme societal stress, such as during wars, economic collapses, or pandemics, there have been instances of moral decline and increased violence. For example, during the Rwandan genocide 1994, societal breakdown led to widespread brutality and dehumanization, with neighbors turning against each other in acts of extreme violence. 3. Religious and sectarian delusions. The narrative describes how religious beliefs, rooted in the worship of ancient foreigners interpreted as extraterrestrial beings or misunderstood entities, will lead to energetic vibrations that fuel hatred, conflict, and violence among different religious groups. Historical current parallel. Religious and sectarian conflicts have been a recurring theme throughout history. For example, the Crusades' 11th or 13th centuries were driven by religious fervor and the belief in divine mandate, leading to centuries of violence between Christians and Muslims. In modern times, sectarian violence between Sunni and Shia Muslims in countries like Iraq and Syria has been fueled by deep-seated religious differences and political manipulation. The rise of religious extremism, such as ISIS or Boko Haram, demonstrates how belief systems can be weaponized to justify violence and hatred against those who believe differently. 4. Energetic vibrations in collective consciousness. The narrative introduces the idea that religious beliefs generate energetic vibrations that negatively influence human behavior on a collective level. While this is a metaphysical concept, it can be loosely compared to the psychological and sociological effects of collective belief systems. Historical current parallel. The concept of collective consciousness or groupthink has been studied in psychology and sociology. For example, propaganda and mass ideology, such as during Nazi Germany or the Cultural Revolution in China, demonstrate how collective beliefs can shape behavior and lead to widespread harm. Social media and digital echo chambers in the modern era amplify polarized beliefs, creating energetic vibrations of anger, fear, and hatred that influence public discourse and behavior. 5. Hatred of religion and intergroup conflict. The narrative predicts that religious beliefs will lead to a malignant negation or hatred of religion, driving conflict between believers and non-believers. This could manifest as persecution, discrimination, or violence against religious minorities or atheists. Historical current parallel. Examples of religious persecution and conflict include the persecution of Jews, Muslims, and other religious minorities throughout history, such as during the Spanish Inquisition or the Holocaust. In modern times, atheists and non-believers face persecution in some religiously conservative societies, while religious minorities are targeted in secular or majority religion states. Synthesis. How this could happen in the future. The narrative's vision of the future could unfold through a combination of overpopulation, resource scarcity, and the weaponization of religious or ideological beliefs. For example, as the global population grows, competition for resources could exacerbate. The rise of extremist ideologies, fueled by misinformation and digital echo chambers, could create energetic vibrations of hatred and division, driving acts of violence and terrorism. Societal breakdown in overpopulated or resource-scarce regions could lead to moral decay and brutalization, as seen in historical examples of war and genocide. Conclusion. While the narrative is speculative, it reflects real-world concerns about overpopulation, resource scarcity, religious conflict, and the psychological impact of collective belief systems. By examining historical and contemporary parallels, we can see how such a dystopian future could theoretically unfold, though it is important to approach such predictions with critical thinking and a focus on solutions to prevent these outcomes.